everyone, and welcome to Dallas Hoops Fancast. I'm your host, Sydney, and I'm here with my co-host, Martin.
Hey, guys.
We're on the internet at DallasHoopsCast.com. Check out our breakdown of the second half of the Mavs schedule on the site that was just posted. In this episode, we're doing a listener mailbag episode. We were just going to do one segment, but we got so many questions that we're dedicating the entire episode to this. If you're listening on YouTube, leave your questions in the comment section and I'll respond to those. But for our next listener mailbag episode, if you want to have your question in there, follow me on Twitter @_ Sydney Myers. That way you can respond and have your question in future episodes. But let's just go ahead and get started because we have a lot to go through. So, first, just thanks to everyone who responded. These are really good questions. I was surprised that we did get such a good response, and some of these questions are good, and I'm really excited to talk about them. So I'm going to shut up and just ask the question. The first one is from @HamelGoHard. There's two questions from this person. So the first one is, what is the one piece we could add to our existing roster that you guys think would make us actual contenders? Obviously, you have to give up something to get something, but I'm curious to see what you think. If you think whatever this system is missing could be embodied by one player. So if you had to pick one player, and it sounds like he's talking about a trade since he mentions you have to give up something to get something. So we'll narrow it down to trades. What's one player that you think would solve their problems?
Like, I have to give a specific player name or just the type?
A specific player name.
Because there's just not... I mean, there's a lot of good players out there, obviously, that would improve the team.
Yeah.
But for me, the guy that would fit best would be Klay Thompson. Now, I know he's injured, and they're not getting him.
Yeah.
So that's why I was wondering, is there perhaps a mold that we can build? To me, they don't have a guy on the offensive end outside of Luka that really puts fear into the hearts of the defense. And Porzingis hasn't really done that this year, really since he's been here. But a person like Klay Thompson, who you have to account for, even Joe Harris. Honestly, Joe Harris would have been a second alternative. He's a much better defender than he's given credit for. Mm-hmm. Dude's averaging 15 points on the guy's averaging 15 points a game on a team with Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. So clearly he can flat out shoot. He's shooting 51% from three.
Yeah, I did a piece on players the Mavericks should target in free agency or as trades, and Joe Harris was one of them. And whenever you really study his game, he's kind of like a poor man's Klay Thompson. Yeah. Not as good, but his skill set is the same. Yeah. He's not as good in those skills, but he has the same skills. He does the same things.
Yeah, well, and you see the loss of Seth Curry, how it has impacted the Mavericks offense, because Seth was such a good three-point shooter that the defenses had to account for him every time he was on the court. So even if he wasn't getting you 15, 20 points, just him being out there made it so much more open for the rest of the team. And I think that's what they're missing this year. Hardaway he's too streaky. If he gets hot,
off the bench, he's
great,
fine.
And I don't want to discuss about Hardaway.
And we've broken down why that's great.
Yeah, so I think a guy that puts fear into the opposing team shooting the ball.
Yeah, so I think you mentioned Klay Thompson, and we mention him all the time. Like, it just anytime we're talking about building a roster, we talk about Klay Thompson because I think he would be a perfect fit. Another guy that I think would solve a lot of their problems is Jimmy Butler.
Oh, yes.
Because he's also a great playmaker, great defender. Now, I know...
And he comes to play in big games.
He's not a long-range sniper, but just his scoring in itself, I think, is enough because you can surround them with other really good shooters.
Yeah, well, and Butler has a knack for making them when it matters.
Yeah, he's a big-time player.
Yeah, you don't leave Butler open.
Yeah, so I would say...
But, I mean, I guess the question...
Those guys aren't available.
Yeah, the question realistically who is available that the Mavericks could put that would make this team? I think Bertans is a guy that puts fear into the opposing team. I mean, I'm not saying he's the answer. I'm not saying he's Klay Thompson. Yeah. But they need a sniper from three, and they don't have the sniper from three.
Bertans is only a sniper, though.
Well, so is Seth. And again, you see...
No, but Seth was a good playmaker. He could do that.
All I'm saying is we're missing the sniper from three. The guy that the opposing defenses had to account for when he was on the court. The Mavericks don't have that. The guys that are shooting their threes are Dorian, Maxey, Josh Richardson, Jalen Brunson, Kristaps, and Tim Hardaway.
So are you saying they only need a sniper? Because in the past we've talked about how they need a playmaker. Are you saying the sniper needs to be a playmaker?
Well, obviously it would be great, and that's where
Okay.
Klay Thompson comes in, because Klay could get his own shot if he had to.
Okay. But you're saying if you can only get one of those things, it would be sniper and not playmaker. It sounds like, I don't know.
I don't know. This team has so many holes.
Yeah, that's
it
the
has so
hard
many
part.
holes.
Yeah.
Like, obviously they need a real playmaker, but I'm just thinking about players that are actually available.
Yeah.
Where they could potentially get. They just don't have the pieces to get a star. Mm-hmm. And a star would be Jimmy Butler, Klay Thompson type of player.
Yeah, well, okay, so guys that maybe are a little more realistic, I think. Well, okay, so Joe Harris is signed. But I did really want him this offseason.
Yes.
And whenever I dug into his game, I was like, dude, this guy, he would be so great.
I just want you to remember who put that bug in your ear.
It was me.
No, it was me. And I kept mentioning Joe Harris, and you kept dismissing him.
No.
And then you're like, I'm going to do some research. And then you realized how awesome Joe Harris was.
Yeah, so he would be a really good fit. He would be the more like attainable version of the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Or we also talked about DeMar DeRozan. Now, I've heard some bad stuff about DeRozan. I want to dig into him a little more. I want to dig into him and see if he really is, or is this another Andre Drummond where he's not as good as we think.
I didn't mention DeRozan because I just didn't know if he was available.
Yeah. Well, I think DeRozan and Joe Harris are more available, obviously, than Klay Thompson and Jimmy Butler.
Well, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So the next question that he had also, do you agree that every City Edition uni we've had so far has been total garbage? Do you think Cuban's the main reason, the main person choosing the designs? He's always had horrid taste, in my opinion. P.S. I've always despised his horse logo. We're long overdue for a brand refresh in general. Well, okay, so I'll start. I have hated every single Mavs City jersey, and they've just gotten worse every year. Their first year was, I think, the neon. It was like just black with neon on the sides.
Yeah.
In retrospect, it wasn't that bad. When you go from like the graffiti jersey, which I hated, and I looked at those, I was like, I didn't know how good we had it. And then the year after that, they did this sort of like light blue logo and the gray jersey. It was like, The graffiti jersey, obviously, everyone knows I hated that one, but I really like this year's. This year's, I think, is like one of the best in the league, and I love it. So I would agree that all of them have been trash except for this year.
I think I'm one of the only people out there that actually liked last year's.
A lot of people liked the graffiti jersey. This caused
good.
wars on Twitter.
I personally like them, and if you want to go to war, we can go to war. Now, this year's I like as well.
Yeah.
I think the very first ones they've done were the one where it had the skyline on the front.
Oh.
And it was like back in 2013,
You know what?
14.
You're right. Yeah.
But anyways, I like them. They're okay. None of them have been awesome.
Yeah.
And I can't really say that for any team. I haven't really liked any teams.
I think this year's has been. I think this
They're
year's
the
awesome.
best. They're definitely the best.
They're awesome.
And it's funny because they're just simple.
Yeah, I like the gold. I think they're clean. I like the wings on the side.
I don't like the A's.
Yeah, the font I'm not crazy
about. It stands out a little too much.
But I can't. It's not going to be perfect. I know a lot of people do think that Cuban is a main person behind some of the designs, and that he has horrid taste. I've heard a lot of people who want a brand refresh. A lot of people want them to use their green more, but I've heard that Cuban doesn't like the green, so he doesn't want to use it.
Yeah, well, one of the first things he did when he bought the team
was get rid of the green.
Yeah, basically.
Or stop using it.
Yeah.
It's still technically a part of their color palette, I think. Maybe not, because they never use it, only when they do the retro, which they only do every 5 years. So, okay, next one. This is from @Riskit4dbiscuit. I hope I said that correctly. How much smoke should there be to have fire, and how much fire should there be to have smoke? That's the question.
Okay, so I'm assuming we're talking about the Porzingis thing, and there's a lot of smoke.
Either that, or he's going camping and just needs to know how to start a fire.
I can't help you with that, but
just get a fire log.
Yeah, easy peasy.
Easy. Yeah, easy. Yeah.
But if we're talking about trade rumors with Porzingis and how much smoke there is around it, to me, there's too much smoke.
Yeah.
Like, occasionally something will come out there and it's just completely not true. And then the story dies.
Yeah.
But with the Porzingis situation, there's just too much smoke out there, and it's coming from multiple different places.
Yeah.
To me, there's a huge fire underneath it all.
Yeah, we actually talked about that a lot in our post-game episode. Dallas Hoops Gamecast is our post-game podcast. Last night, their game against the Nets, how they posted up Kristaps like 20 times, and it just seemed really strange that they suddenly changed their whole philosophy. And that, combined with how he had been out for multiple games with like back whatever, and then the rumors, and then there was the thing where he didn't get the ball last night, and so he was like, he got upset. There were reports, people that were at the game said that after Kristaps got upset for not getting the ball, he and Carlisle went at it and had like a shouting match. Kristaps kicked a chair or something. And there's just like, there's so many things that individually you're like, calm down, it's nothing. But you put them together, yeah, it's a lot of smoke.
He's definitely getting traded.
I don't know if he will, but there's something there. There's something there.
Outside of Luka and Dirk, Carlisle's going to win that.
Yeah.
He's given a free, unlimited pass.
He's here forever.
Yes.
He's a lifer.
Until he decides he's done.
Yeah.
And whether you agree with it or not, or you agree with his coaching methods or whatever, I'm not going to touch on that.
He's
the fact
never
is,
getting fired.
He is second in command. Mm-hmm. Actually, he is. Okay, let me do this. So it's Cuban, Donnie, Luka. Actually, it's Cuban, Luka, Donnie, Carlisle.
Yeah.
And then a mile of nothing, and then it's Porzingis. Yeah. So it's the whole situation with Rondo. Mm-hmm. Carlisle didn't like him. Rondo's gone.
Yeah, I do think there's too much smoke for there not to be a fire. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't want to talk about it a ton because like I said, we just spent like 30 minutes talking about it in last night's episode. So you can go listen to that.
I'd be surprised
also
if
subscribe to that podcast if you want to listen to our post-game episodes.
Okay. It sounds like you're editing that in.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if he doesn't get traded at the trade deadline or before the trade deadline.
I don't know, because the Mavs every year, they're like, we're wheeling and dealing, we're always opportunistic, and then they do nothing because ultimately they want cap space.
Well, they have nobody to trade.
True.
But the time they did have somebody to trade, they got Porzingis.
Yeah, but they don't have anybody to trade. Well, I guess
they do.
Kristaps.
They have Porzingis.
Okay.
Yes.
So, okay. Next, this is from I can't read at Kabam Sports. This is actually a Mavs podcast. The name of the podcast is Kabam Mavericks Podcast. Makes sense. Okay. The question, will Mavs fans apologize to KP when he's given the time to get some games together and is playing great again? #patience.
I hope so. My ultimate dream is that Porzingis turns into that guy.
The unicorn.
The second franchise, the second star, the second fiddle to Luka. And they become this duo, this dynamic duo, and they're awesome, and they win a lot of games, and they're contending. That's my ultimate dream, and he's healthy.
Yeah.
But I just don't see it happening. I think the way, if you look at Porzingis' history, and a lot of it is rumors around his agent or his brother, and how they're high maintenance. And to be fair, like, the Mavericks have done a lot. Like, they hired his personal trainer, they brought on his doctor, his psychiatrist, like all of that. They did everything they could. They offered him a max contract, even though he hadn't been healthy. It's like, what more could they do for him? And yet he's still not healthy. Well, yeah. And so in this game against the Nets, we gave you the ball every time down the court. And then two times you didn't get it.
Thank you for the 18 points.
You're kicking a chair and yelling at Carlisle. It's like, well, good God, man. Like, what more do you want?
Yeah.
And so at first when the situation with New York had come out, we blamed New York because we hadn't seen that guy that New York had talked about. Mm-hmm. But we're starting to see that guy. Maybe he's right. Like, maybe he should be getting the ball more. And you know what? What's crazy about that? There's a huge argument to be made that is true.
Yeah,
because
we've talked about that.
We've watched the Mavericks, and they'll go through this decision making where Jalen and Josh Richardson and Tim Hardaway and Trey Burke will be the primary playmakers.
Yeah.
And it's like, how, if you're Kristaps Porzingis, how do you stand there and watch these guys turn the ball over, shoot up a stupid shot, and say, hey, how come I'm not getting the ball? Mm-hmm. And to be fair, he hasn't been productive when he's given the ball, but there's a huge case to be made that he should be given the ball more.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. One, he should get the ball, and then two, he needs to make the shot. And really,
or make a good play.
Yeah.
You're not always going to make it, but yes.
And sometimes neither one of those things happens. Sometimes he never gets the ball, and then sometimes when he does, he never makes a shot. And so it's both things. But like you said, if he is now just great, he can become that guy. Then that's what I've said all along. I want them to work it out. Yeah,
me too. And the thing is, I think a lot of Carlisle is it's affecting Porzingis mentally. Because Carlisle keeps saying bad shot, bad shot, bad shot, bad shot. And
Don't
every
post
single
up,
bad shot is what Porzingis does well in his mind.
Yeah.
And so every time he gets the ball and he wants to do something, Carlisle's in the back of his head saying, no, bad shot, no. And it's like that affects his play on the court. Now he looks like he doesn't even know how to play basketball.
Yeah, well, we've talked about how he's thinking it looks like he's thinking too much. That could be why. I mean, to be fair, he's 7'3". What is a 7'3" guy going to do other than play in the post? He's not going to be running around like a guard. So, I mean, I can understand his side of it.
Yes, well, exactly. It's 100%. Carlisle wants him to be a floor spacer. He doesn't want to be that. He wants to be a star.
Now, again, he hasn't been great in the post, and we talked about that on the pod last night. He was good last night, but he hasn't been great in the post. However, I think there are things he can do to be good there. If he faces up rather than backing down, that's great. But again, he hasn't been consistently good there.
Yes, and I think he's better than what he's shown. Again, I really do think Carlisle is impacting him. Because when you're constantly under pressure to do something that you're not really wanting to do or what you want to do. Yeah, exactly.
That comes instinctively
to you. And so then when you miss the shot, the weight just gets heavier and heavier.
Yeah.
So I really do think, and Carlisle's not an easy coach to play for. We have countless history of that. So I do think that's impacting him. He does deserve a little bit of freedom to allow him to be who he is.
Yeah, I think that's like just having that little bit of freedom. You know, now Luka, he gets tons of freedom because he's one of the greatest players in the league. I'm not saying that Kristaps deserves that, but just maybe a little bit more. Yeah.
Yes, and maybe if you give him freedom, then he doesn't have Carlisle's voice in the back of his head every time he shoots. Then maybe he can become that guy that we always thought. And then it is productive to give him the ball on the court and let him produce or make a play.
Now, all that being said, he has to deliver. He's got to deliver, and he hasn't done that consistently. So that's just. Now, I mean, it's there, but if he can deliver, then sure. But that much that comes with responsibility, making those demands.
Yes. Well, and this was the point that we had talked about a long time ago about him requesting longer stretches of minutes. And it's like you only get one time to request that.
Yeah.
And at least he did deliver.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe he'll do it again. But the biggest thing with me is he's got to be a star when it matters. And that's what I haven't seen from him at all. And now maybe if he's given a little bit of freedom and he's allowed to just be who he is, maybe he'll turn back into that guy that we thought he was going to be.
Okay, let's move on. This one is from @Ali. I'm not going to say this right. Ali Wawamik. I apologize.
You butchered that.
I apologize. Okay. The question is,
America.
What are the teams the Mavs should be avoiding in terms of first round matchups in the playoffs?
All of them.
If they make the playoffs. I think the Suns, Jazz, Blazers, and Lakers are teams the Mavs should avoid in the first round.
Yeah, I don't know if they need to avoid the Blazers. The Mavericks have historically played well against the Blazers. Now, obviously, if you get Damian when he's having a hot series, then you don't have a chance. But he's only had like 2 of those. Every other series, he's been trash, and yet he's given a free pass.
He has not been trash.
But anyways, so I'm not too afraid of the Blazers, and I'm also not afraid of the Suns. I know the Suns beat us, but I just think that if the Mavericks are fully healthy and they're clicking on all cylinders, I think they might be right up there at the same level as the Suns.
I think the Suns are early enough in their road to contention that they can still be beat. They're not, like, you rarely just go from not good enough to championship.
Yeah.
So I think they could be beat.
I just don't think I think they're a good team, but they're just not that team.
Yeah,
Like Chris Paul and Devin Booker are a great combo.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't really have a whole lot of talent outside of those two. And DeAndre Ayton's okay.
They have guys that can have good games. They can
yes,
get hot.
But in a playoff
they have
series,
a few solid guys.
It's usually exactly.
Yeah.
So the Suns I'm okay with facing, and the Blazers I'm okay with facing, and the Clippers I'm okay with facing.
What about the Spurs? Oh, the Clippers.
Yeah.
But they are bet. You don't think you think they're going to do that again?
I think
choke in the playoffs?
I think Luka's just living in their head.
He's got their number.
Yeah, he's living in their head.
What about the Spurs? They're currently fifth.
No, I'm not afraid of the Spurs at all. I don't think the Spurs are very good. I know their record is good, but I don't see them maintaining that.
Yeah, I would be okay with the Spurs, the Blazers, and the Suns.
Just not the Lakers
and I'm not
or the
saying,
Jazz.
Yeah, I'm not saying they would beat those teams. I think the Mavs would probably lose, especially if they're like a 7th or 8th seed. But it's their best chance of winning. Okay, next question. This is from @Brent Edmondson. What players do you think the Mavs trade for to help us now in the future? I don't know if he means like should they trade for, or if he means like what's a prediction. So let's just...
I mean, it really all depends, like we talked about before, on the Porzingis. If we're going to assume Porzingis is not traded and they want to fill their roster outside of that...
They have no assets.
Their only main asset is Jalen Brunson. So with Brunson, if another team feels like he's a starting point guard, which was great that the media is starting to hype that up because that's just increasing his trade value. And there's a team out there that needs a point guard and is... Yes. Well, but do the Clippers have any pieces that we want? So it's got to be a perfect scenario. The team's got to...
Ibaka?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I trade Brunson for a 32-year-old Ibaka or how old Ibaka is. And besides, if you're going to keep Porzingis, Ibaka is kind of pointless.
Yeah.
So you would need wing depth or a secondary playmaker that's better than Brunson and can start.
I was talking to a Bulls guy this past week, and he saw a lot of value in Maxey. As well as Brunson. I think those two kind of had the most value to him. So Maxey...
We'll trade you Maxey for Zach LaVine.
I mean, it's not like they have a ton of value, but just on the Mavs roster, those two guys have the most value. What could you get for Maxey and Brunson? I don't think a whole lot.
I think Brunson has more value. So what the Mavericks can offer a team is really similar to what they did when they got Porzingis. They can offer a young asset who's actually better than Dennis Smith.
Ooh,
and they can offer cap space. I don't think that's very much of a burn. I think that's... I don't know. Anyways, so they can offer a young, promising player, and they can offer a whole bunch of cap space with Hardaway and James Johnson and Josh Richardson's contracts.
Yeah.
You just got to find the perfect scenario. You got to find the other Porzingis that's on a bad team, and they're looking to move on from them, and they're bad GMs. So
the problem is all the teams that have players I want, they don't need cap space.
And they probably don't need a point guard.
Yeah. I was talking to him. I was like, well, would you take Maxey and Brunson for Wendell Carter Jr.? Because I think he would be a good fit. And he was like, nah. So, I mean, those guys have value, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. This is from @Luka Skywalker 77. Is Donnie Nelson overrated by fans? Do y'all think the front office will change its offseason approach from Dwight Howard to Giannis and all the bargain bin 1-year contract dudes that trailed off? But
I mean, look, the whole free agency thing that they've done over the last couple of years, actually since 2011, has been some of the most frustrating experiences.
And it hasn't worked. And it's it's silly that they're still doing it.
Yes. I don't think it's Donnie that's pulling those strings, though.
I don't think so either.
I think it's Cuban.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, yeah.
They haven't paid the luxury tax in 10 years. That's not... Donnie don't care... what all that crap. I think that
he has to get permission.
Yeah,
to make
I think
a move.
that shows that Cuban's kind of pulling the strings there.
Well, and you have the example of the 2013 draft, the one that Giannis came out at.
Yeah,
and Donnie wanted to draft him, but Cuban wanted to save $5, and so
it was $400,000.
Well, in NBA terms, that's a nickel.
Yeah,
he wanted to save a nickel or a dime. And by saving that nickel or dime,
they got nobody.
And Giannis was drafted by the Bucks, and Donnie wanted him. And then in the case with Luka, Donnie had to basically forcefully, according to the reports, slam his hand down on the table.
Put his career on the line.
Yes, exactly. and offer the first year round pick for the next year because Cuban wasn't really sold on Luka.
Yeah.
So I think it's Cuban. And I love Cuban, but if I really look at his history since he's bought the team, he hasn't made really good decisions. Mm-hmm. The Steve Nash situation.
We're never letting that go.
No, because it was the dumbest decision ever. Yeah. It was just dumb. And then the Tyson Chandler situation
the whole championship
was on another level.
But,
I mean, yes. So I question his decision making, and he's been great, and the Mavericks have had a long run, but how much of that was just Dirk?
Yeah, I mean, Cuban even said in a video, I think with GQ, that the reason they didn't draft Giannis was because the scouts and Donnie were really big on him, but he was like, we didn't have hardly any footage. It was like, these VHS tapes in a dark gym, and there was just nothing to see. And I'm like, well, that's why you have scouts, because they fly there and watch the guy, and then they tell you. And it's like, why do you pay these guys if you're not going to listen to them?
Yep. Well,
and so that was ultimately his decision. He didn't listen to the people who knew what they were talking about.
Yep. And again, to save $400,000 so they can go after Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a chance of getting him anyways because you had nobody else on the team.
Yeah.
So, no, I think Donnie's great.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cuban has been the main culprit for the Mavs' failures.
Some of their, bad decisions. I think if you give Donnie Nelson assets.
A free pass? Yes.
No, if you give him assets, he can do amazing things. And before the championship, when they were willing to pay the luxury tax, he made moves all the time. Now, they didn't win a championship, but at least they were always in contention. Mm-hmm. I mean, part of that because
they
had
win a
Dirk.
Championship at
but
some
yeah, they
point,
did eventually. I mean, yeah, I think Donnie does a great job. I disagree with the whole free agency plan. I think it's ridiculous and hasn't worked. And even if you thought it was a good idea for a few years in a row, like at what point are you like, maybe this isn't a good plan, But yeah, I don't think that's Donnie. And then do I think that they'll move on from that plan? I don't. I don't know. If they're not willing to pay the luxury tax, then that's it.
Well, at some point they're going to have to if they want to actually truly contend.
You can't be a good team without paying a luxury tax.
Yeah, they're trying to moneyball this situation. And in the NBA, it's about stars. You got to have guys that make shots when they matter and get stops when they matter. You can't moneyball it.
Yes. Okay, next question is from B Trizzle at BNT Zilla Guy. Question. Yes, there's a question. I don't doubt the Mavs might be shopping KP. Only Luka is truly untouchable. But is there actually a package out there that they would do it for? Any realistic trade targets for the Mavs during the season before the deadline? You had an interesting theory about the Warriors.
I did?
Yes. Would you like to share it?
If you could remind me what that interesting theory was.
Okay, so there was that whole thing where Kristaps liked a tweet by somebody who had just randomly said, like, welcome to the Warriors, because I thought he was getting traded, and he was like, might as well be the Warriors. And Kristaps liked that tweet, and there was, like, video evidence. I mean, it looked legit. I don't know. He unliked it, so you can't see it anymore, but he had liked it originally, and your theory was...
I think they probably had a trade ready to go, and his agent or his brother was aware of it, and blah, blah, blah. It all came out, and then it kind of crumbled last minute, and so he had to go back and unlike it.
Yeah.
So,
or people found out that he had liked it.
Yeah. So it's a theory. Now, the two teams that have, and I don't remember the podcast that we were listening to. Pick a Side Pod. I guess they had found out or saw through sources that the Wizards and the Warriors were the main two teams that the Mavericks were, or that were interested in Porzingis. And it makes sense for the Wizards. They're trying to keep Bradley Beal. They might be a team that will make a desperate move to keep him, much like the Mavericks did for Luka. They wanted to bring in another star. So the Wizards, and they have a lot of other pieces. Now, they're young and they're unproven, but it might fit for the Mavericks better. Now, the Warriors, I don't know where they fit in. I just don't know. I don't really want Andrew Wiggins' contract.
Yeah, and I think that's what the trade would be.
Yeah, and if we're going to move on from Porzingis' bad contract, I'd rather just start over. Yeah. Just start over while we still have young Luka. We still have a couple of years to rebuild. I really agree with the whole decision to get Porzingis. I thought it was the right move to make. It just didn't work the way we wanted it to. I have no interest in Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, I think a Warriors trade would center around Andrew Wiggins, and he's fine. I mean, he's not garbage, but I don't know if he really...
He doesn't move the needle.
Yeah, he doesn't move the needle. A Wizards trade would probably center... Well, not really center around anybody. I think probably the guys would be like Rui Hachimura, Davis Bertans, you mentioned, and
Denny
then
Avdija,
something else. Somebody else.
That's who was mentioned on that pod.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They were just theorizing.
Yes, yeah. I don't think they're getting Bradley Beal.
No, I don't.
I don't think Washington's going to move on. I think,
Yeah.
But if Washington's desperate, you might be able to gut their team and their draft picks for Porzingis,
Yeah, true.
and maybe turn that around for something else.
Yeah, I mean, and like Thomas Bryant this year, he was averaging...
He tore his ACL.
Yeah, so before that he was averaging 14 points. Rui's averaging 13. I mean, nobody on that team really excites me because it's like the team sucks. Like, how good can those players really be? I mean, even with Bradley Beal, I'm starting to kind of doubt a little bit because it's like they're not...
You could make the argument...
They've had a good stretch lately.
Yeah, you could make the argument that he has, outside of the whole Porzingis stuff, he actually, no... You could make the argument, the Wizards, that Bradley Beal has a better supporting cast than Luka. I mean Russell Westbrook is better than Porzingis, despite all the whole noise about Westbrook. He's just a better player.
On the court.
Yeah, he's just a better player. And then outside of that, it's a competition of Dorian against Rui, Maxey against Bertans. You know, it's like...
It could go either way.
So I think there's a huge argument he has a better supporting cast. And now maybe some of these guys would work better with Luka. I don't know.
So...
Outside of those two teams, I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, the Mavs are really tight-lipped. Like, we really have no idea who they've been talking... Now, we've heard the Warriors and the Wizards, but...
Another team I would look into would be the Hornets. And Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier, because LaMelo, the way he's kind of become a pretty good player and maybe even a future star. And so maybe they want to move on from Rozier. And Porzingis kind of helps out. I would like to take Rozier off their hands if they wanted to give him away. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know if they would.
I don't know. I mean, why would they want, like, if they got their new guard of the future?
Yeah,
so, but maybe Rozier's part of those plans.
Yeah, it's like I said, that you never really hear anything about the Mavs, so anything...
Because they are a top-notch organization.
But, like, anything that we guess would just be... It would be guesses. Like, there's no rumors at this point, other than that they've, talked to other teams.
I would say that if Porzingis doesn't play the next game due to quote-unquote back tightness, resurgence, whatever, I think the whole Brooklyn game was kind of a showcase game.
Yeah.
The trade is in play. We're just waiting on something. And one thing that the guy mentioned on that pod was Bertans isn't eligible for trade until like March something.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe that's what they would be waiting for.
Okay, the next question is from Mark Schindler from Premium Hoops at mschindlernba. He has, one or two, I don't know. What are your thoughts on Jay Rich's season, Josh Richardson? Obviously, he has struggled from the outside and underwhelmed offensively. He has a player option this summer, and it's just kind of murky what his future is in Dallas, if there is one from either party. Josh Richardson, I think I was talking to somebody else, I don't know, and like he's been a little disappointing. He's averaging less than 13 points this season, or maybe right at 13 points this season. He has flashes where he can be a playmaker, but it's clearly not him. Like, that is not what he does. That's not his skill set. His individual defense is pretty good. Again, kind of like sometimes it's there locked down and then sometimes it's just okay. Really, with Josh Richardson, I couldn't care less what they do with him. I've been really underwhelmed as a whole. And I think at that guard spot, you really need that second guy that everybody talks about for the Mavs. And so he's just taken up that spot. And so I'm like, whatever. I couldn't care less.
Yeah, I mean, Richardson is the fifth guy, the fifth starter. Like, he's the Tony Allen type guy that's out there for a good team. For the Celtics, Tony Allen was their defensive lockdown guy.
Yeah.
But that's really it. Like, he doesn't move the needle much. And if I had known the season was going to go the way it's going now, I would prefer to have just kept Seth.
Yeah.
Not that Seth is only averaging, I think, 15 points a game, but it's different kinds of points. And I don't know if the defense is that much of a drop off. But to be fair, the Mavericks defense has shown signs that it can be really good. In the last 4 games, they've been number 1 in the league. And since their mini All-Star break that they got, due to the weather here. I think he's had a huge part of that because I know he doesn't get a lot of box score, kind of, I can't think. It doesn't get a lot of attention. Yeah. But I think he's having an impact on the defensive side of the court.
Yeah, I think, first of all, just the trade was a good idea. And it hasn't really worked out. Obviously, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't do the trade. Yes. But I'm not upset that they did it. They took a good risk, and I'm okay with it. Now, I am upset that I think ultimately their underlying motivation was because Josh Richardson, has the player option, and so it's theoretically cap space. I hate that motivates all of their decisions. But if you're just looking at the players, the trade made sense. And then, again, I just think that guard spot would be where you put that, kind of second playmaker. But, it could also be at the wing spot where you put that second playmaker.
I don't know
maybe he still fits.
I don't know if really that's important where that guy is because once you get past the point guard, all those guys are kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, you're right about that. So, but still, just because he hasn't been great, I'm indifferent to what they do with him. Now, do you think that he'll opt in to his player option this summer?
I doubt it. Even if he just continues to have the season that he's having, he's still so young. You're going to get more money long term than you would get on this last year, which I think would only be like $10 million.
It's like 11 or something.
Yeah, so I think he opts out no matter what.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. At Mavs main.
Did he not have a 2-part to his question?
Oh, yeah, but the second part wasn't actually a question.
Oh, okay.
It was, I've had this on my radar for a bit from an outsider perspective. Love him as a player and locker room presence. Definitely interested to get your thoughts.
It just hasn't had the impact, that we wanted and we were expecting. Based on what he thought, that's who we thought we were getting.
Yeah. Seems like a really great guy. He always just goes and plays, not a lot of trouble, gives it his all. He's just not a very good player.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is from @MavsManiac84, Chris Lopez, MFFL. His question is, who's on the trade block this time around? And I responded, I was like, am I picking up on some sarcasm here? Because we're always putting people on the trade block. But, just assuming this is a legit question.
Everybody. Outside of Luka.
Yeah, and not that everyone is actively being shopped, but everyone is available.
Yeah. They're available. Teams can call and ask about them and say, hey, we're willing to do this or this, and the Mavericks can say yay or nay.
Yeah.
But I think every single player outside of Luka is available.
Including Kristaps.
Yes.
Yeah.
If they get the right package.
Yeah.
One of the things that on the jump, they had Marcus Spears or Mark Spears.
I think it's
Mark Spears. Either way, Mr. Spears was on, and he had mentioned that it wasn't just the defensive problems or the injury history. It was the fact that Porzingis is high maintenance. And I guess he has gotten sources saying that that's part of the reason why the Mavericks were willing to move on, because he's such high maintenance. And we saw in that Brooklyn's game, in order to get him involved in the offense, you have to stop everything you're doing and just bloop, give him the ball and let him go to work. Go. Yes.
Yeah. So I heard that report was totally bogus.
Who said that? Cuban?
Maybe.
Yes,
I don't know. But somebody said that they think that's just somebody from New York putting that out there because they're still salty.
That's
just what I heard.
I think New York has a whole new brass. I think they're done. They've moved on from that whole situation.
Okay, the next one is from @theBLKKing. The question is, thoughts on trade options involving Powell and Boban?
I would prefer, for what you're going to get back for Boban, you're better off just keeping him just for his locker room presence.
Yeah.
His friendship with Luka, his joy. You wouldn't get anything back for him that would make it worth it. Yeah. Well, Powell, you want to get rid of at this point because, no, I don't mean that. No, he's getting $10 million a year the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So you got to. I will take a second round pick for Dwight. I would take cash. I would take nothing for. I will give you cash to take Dwight Powell.
Okay, I think from the Mavericks' point of view, having him in the locker room is worth more than a second round pick.
It's worth $10 million a year.
I mean,
because you want to talk about terrible contracts.
Yeah, because he doesn't really
does
play
nothing
ever. Yeah, after the Achilles, he's
before the Achilles.
Yeah,
I hate how people are putting that little anecdote there. Little asterisk. Before the Achilles, he was a non-player in this league.
I was like, I feel like now all the Dwight Powell lovers are just using that as an excuse.
Well, since the Achilles,
it's like this is what he was like before.
Yes,
I mean he can't jump for the alley oops, but oh god, we're dead now.
Whatever. He was. Whatever. I don't want to bash Powell again. I don't think they would get anything for Powell. I don't think there's any team out there interested in him. Likewise with Boban, I think you're better off just keeping him just for his locker room presence.
Yeah, I don't think either one of them have value. Okay.
I'd love to get Terry Rozier for, them, but it's not going to happen.
Next one is from @Derecho10. The question is, how much value in a trade do expiring contracts of James Johnson and Tim Hardaway Jr. have at the NBA trade deadline? I mean, it depends on the team. I know that sounds
it does.
A dumb answer.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. It kind of depends on the team what their decision is, what their plan is for the future. Like, is that team that you're trading them to wanting cap space, like New York? When you did the whole cap dump for them, they were wanting to sign max guys. They thought because they were New York, they'd be able to do that. So you would have to find the right scenario. I don't know if Tim Hardaway has a lot of value. Like, Tim Hardaway's value is for a contending team. Like, he would be the final piece that a contending team, like the Clippers, say, for example, they just need one more shooter.
Or the
Warriors. They're not really contending. But, the team, the top near, like Milwaukee, they need one more shooter. So those kind of teams would have. Yes, exactly. So they would have a lot of value for Tim Hardaway, but
if they could guarantee that he's gonna resign,
unless you're going win now mode.
Oh yeah. I see what you mean.
So
yeah.
Outside of that, I mean, it really just kind of depends on the team that you're dealing with, because they may have a lot of value.
Yeah.
Depending on the team, or they may not have any value.
Basically, it's really just about the record. Like a really bad team generally doesn't care about cap space
unless they're a free agent destination.
True, like the Mavericks.
Okay.
But I mean, if they're a free agent destination, But for the most part, a bad team is not going to lure a lot of free agents that cost a lot of money. Or I guess maybe they might overpay, but generally, like, cap space is for the bigger teams, the really good teams that have a guy, they know they can sign him, or they need to add a couple pieces. They just need to throw the money out there and they get them. Those are the teams I think.
I really think
or a team that has like a super bad contract.
Yes. Yeah. I really do think a trade centerpiece, much like the one they did when they got Porzingis, where it's centered around Brunson and the expiring deals, they might be able to pull the trigger on a guy out there. I just don't know who that guy is.
Yeah.
And, that really kind of is the only thing that would prevent them is that guy out there, and is that team wanting to move on.
So I definitely think expiring contracts have a lot of value, but only for certain teams. Yep. Like for a team like the Bulls, it has no value. But for a team that, whatever that team is that needs it, then it has a ton of value. Okay, next question is from @SanAntonioSmart. It is, if the Mavericks by some miracle make the playoffs, who are they replacing? So let me give you the current NBA standings so we can see whose place they might take. So currently in the West, it is Jazz, Lakers, Clippers, Suns, Spurs, Blazers, Warriors, Nuggets. The Mavs are currently 9th. They're a game and a half behind the Nuggets for 8th and 2 games out of 6th and 7th.
Yeah, so first of all, I don't think it's a miracle for them to make the playoffs. I think that if you take away that whole COVID situation, this team has been pretty good. They haven't been, they're not contenders, but they've been pretty good.
But this last stretch where they've gone like 7-2 or whatever, that a lot of that was those were really bad teams.
So, I mean, their record's still 7-2.
Yeah,
like,
but what happens when they play normal teams? Like
they go 500.
Yeah,
that's
okay,
how
okay,
that's how
that's
you
fair.
win in this league.
Yeah,
is the teams you're supposed to beat, you have a really high record, and the teams that are really good, you have a decent record against them.
Yeah.
So I think I'm not convinced of San Antonio, and I know that guy's a San Antonio guy.
Well, his name is Big D, and then he's at San Antonio Smart.
Okay, so I don't know
assuming it's
what area he is supporting. But I don't see San Antonio maintaining their record, and I am not sold on Portland.
I think the Warriors have a better chance of falling out than Portland or the Spurs.
I think those three teams are the teams that the Mavericks would really be fighting for. And
Yeah.
one of those three would be the teams that fall out. I know Portland had that nice little run where they were 18-10. I think their record is a little misleading. Like every year, anytime Portland wins 4 games in a row, they're the dark horse. Dark horse. Portland's always the dark horse.
Always the dark horse.
Even before they got Lillard, when the Mavericks played them in 2011, they were projected to beat the Mavericks.
Yeah.
So Portland, I just don't think they're that good.
They're 6-4 in their last 10. They've lost 4 in a row.
I think since they beat the Mavericks, they've lost 4 in a row. So yeah, Golden State, San Antonio, and Portland. I can't see Denver staying at 8th, but you never know. Like, Denver's lost a lot of people.
They did.
Over the last couple of years, and Michael Porter Jr., he can put up some stats, but he doesn't impact wins and losses. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they ship Porter somewhere. So,
Would you want him on the map? Okay.
No, he's too much of a liability on defense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree. I think the Warriors have the biggest chance, but I guess I could see the Blazers or the Spurs falling out. But the Spurs are really, I mean, they're 17-12. I think they're staying. They might not remain the 5th seed, but I think they're staying. Next. This is from @Derecho10 again. What's Luka and KP's chemistry off-court best buds?
I have not seen that. I don't know. I mean, I talked to Luka 3 days ago. Just kidding. I don't have any sources or any contacts with any of these places.
Yeah, how do you think we have a podcast where we trash everybody on the team and then have sources?
there's one video that always comes into my mind when I think about their relationship off the court, and that was in the bubble. In the bubble, there was this video of all the Euro guys. Mm-hmm. It was Jokic, it was Luka, Vucevic, all of them. They were all
Gomez.
Yes, they were all hanging out like they were best buds. Porzingis wasn't there.
Well, maybe he had a date
in the bubble.
Oh, right.
It was in the bubble. He couldn't go anywhere.
Maybe he had a haircut appointment.
Okay. Whatever excuse, the fact is he wasn't there, and everybody else was like hanging out, and he wasn't. And I feel like he's kind of a, not aloof. I don't know if I want to say that word, but what's the introvert?
Yeah,
I think he's an introvert.
So yeah, I mean that depending
aloof,
on the
I don't mean it in a negative way, but I don't think him and Luka quite gel.
Yeah,
if you hate each other on the court, you ain't friends off the court.
I don't think they hate each other.
They hate each other.
I don't think they do. I think they just
hate each other.
Sometimes you click with a person and sometimes you don't, but that doesn't mean you hate them. It just means, you don't click. You're not best friends, but you don't have a problem with them. You like them, you respect them, whatever, but you're not best buds. And I think they have that kind of relationship.
Yeah, and I think ultimately we just don't know, but I have not seen them hanging out outside of basketball.
I don't think that they're super close friends.
No.
But I think that they like each other and they're cool and all that.
I don't.
Okay. Next question is from @Real-ish Podcast. Should we tone down the KP trade talk?
Should we or should the Mavs?
It just said we. Maybe Mavs fans.
I mean, first of all, trades are exciting in a year.
Yeah.
So that just kind of gets everybody juices going. Yeah. And Porzingis is kind of a hot topic right now because there's the side that love KP, there's the side that's done with him. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's going to stop until the trade deadline's over.
Yeah.
Until then, I think it's just going to continue to have rumors, and Woj or Zach Lowe will come out and say there's something going on. And of course, they may do that whether there's something going on or not, just to irk Cuban because Cuban attacked low and they're going to get him back, and all that stuff.
I think that things just keep happening. There was the rumors, and then there was that he was out, and then there was the Nets game, and things just keep happening that kind of
just too much smoke.
Stoking the fires. Yeah. Well, and just to keep stoking the fires. As long as those things keep happening, it will continue to be talked about. And again, I still maintain that that they're not shopping him. I think they were looking for his value, but I don't know. Maybe they are shopping him. Maybe he hates it here. I don't know.
I think he requested the trade.
I don't know, bro. Okay. Next one. This is from @Ethan. Are you buying all the KP trade talk? Well, I guess we just answered
yes,
that. I totally
am. Yes.
Yeah. I definitely think the rumors were legit. Yeah. Next question @LaRueJJ. At this point, was the KP trade still a win? Good question.
Yes, it was, because 99% of draft picks turn out to do nothing in the league. Absolutely nothing. So the Mavericks weren't going to have a top round pick. They weren't going to keep Dennis Smith anyways. Mm-hmm. Dennis Smith has turned out to be a non-player in the league. He's not good.
Yeah.
He had his best year his rookie year and then has just steadily declined. And now I don't even know if he's playing in Detroit.
He is, and he had a really good dunk the other night.
Ooh. He needs to be let loose. He needs to be free. Free Dennis Smith. Yeah, Dennis Smith is not a good player. And for you to turn Dennis Smith and Wes Matthews and DeAndre Jordan, those expiring contracts, into Porzingis and Hardaway, you almost won the trade just with Hardaway alone.
Yeah.
So, yes, they definitely won the trade.
Here was the full trade. The Mavericks traded away DeAndre Jordan, Wesley Matthews, Dennis Smith Jr., a 2021 first-round pick, and a 2023 first-round pick, top 10 protected. So 2 first-round picks in those guys. They got Kristaps, Trey Burke, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Courtney Lee. So I think it was a win because, like you said, they got Tim Hardaway Jr., who's been key. Whether he leaves or not, it doesn't matter. For the years that they had him, he's been key. Trey Burke has been all right, We
got Bubble Burke. That alone makes it worth it.
He's done things, okay.
And you got a 3-year deal.
Yeah. And we got rid of Wesley Matthews. Okay.
That ultimately was the biggest win.
Yeah, that's and regardless of what those players have done for the Mavericks, regardless of what you think of Lee or Hardaway or Burke or even Kristaps for that matter, the fact is that none of those players that they traded to the Knicks are there anymore. DeAndre Jordan, Wesley Matthews, Dennis Smith Jr., they're not even there anymore. So that value that you gave them, you don't have that. They're not doing anything, whereas the Mavericks at least are still getting production from their guys. Now, the 2 first-round picks, that's obviously, it remains to be seen. Who knows? But at this point, I still think they won.
Yeah, I think first-round picks are just completely overvalued.
In the NBA, it's so tough. It's not like in the NFL where these guys played college football for 4 years. They come in ready to contribute on a Super Bowl team. In the NBA, there are so many busts. You don't know what you got.
They're all, like, every draft, there's maybe 5 guys that are actually in the league.
Yeah.
Every one of them, all the other ones have just either fallen out or they're the 15th guy. And so look at Josh Green. Everybody was so high. Tyler Bay, everybody was flipping out about these guys. And I was like, these guys suck. Like, I don't understand why you guys think these guys are going to be any good in the NBA. They're second-round picks. There's been like 4 in history. Second-round picks that turned out to be good. Draymond, Manu Ginobili, and I can't think of 2 others.
There's another one.
Okay, so that's my point. So to think that these second-round picks, that maybe Jalen is one of the good second-round picks.
Yeah, that's a good example.
But it's like these guys aren't any good, and unless you have a top 5 pick, the chances of anybody outside the top 5 being any good are so remote. For you to get that guy, the chances are so low, it's not worth it. Trade the pick. I am not a big draft guy.
I think, so obviously every NBA player was drafted. So including the really good ones.
Not true. There have been a lot of undrafted players.
Okay, yes. But like every NBA player was drafted. So it's not like...
Not true.
It's not like you can't get good players in the draft. Obviously, that's where they come from. But I think like you're the kind of guy that would play the odds. And the odds are that with your one pick, are you going to get the guy... Those odds might not be as high as if you're trading for
a guy that's already good.
You already know what he is.
Yes, you know he's good. Yeah. You have already seen it. You know that his game in college translated to the NBA.
Yeah.
I am better with that. Now, if it's a top 5 pick, I might keep it and I might take my chances. But outside of that, man, I'm open for business.
Okay, this is the last question from at NBA17771. Or maybe it's 171.
Let's not spend 20 minutes on the numbers there.
Last question. Does Luka win Player of the Month for February?
Ooh, that's actually a good question because their record has been pretty good. And his numbers, I think he does. I do. I think he does.
I'm going to look up his splits for February. He has averaged
30 points a game.
Come back.
I think it was 38 and 8.
30 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. He shot, where's his shooting percentage?
Like
he
50,
shot
40,
48% overall, 43% on 3-pointers.
And the record, I think, is what?
Good.
8 and 3 or something. So,
yeah,
I do think he wins Player of the Month.
Now, like, I don't know what anybody else did. So,
well, I mean,
I don't know. Maybe
Damian Lillard's lost 4 in a row. Maybe he should be starting in the All-Star game.
it's possible that freaking, like, Obi Toppin went off or something.
Well,
but
it's East and West.
Yeah, you're right.
And Obi Toppin, really.
He was, I see his name a lot on the twits, so... The Twitters.
Yes, thank you for finishing that off. I was about to say, well, you should edit that out, but you do what you want. It's your pod.
So, yes, those are all the questions. Thank you, guys. That was pretty fun. Like I said, if you're listening on YouTube, leave your questions, and then I'll answer those, and we can do that there.
Those were really good questions. And you
questions.
Can see, like, 90% of them were about KP.
Yeah.
And I get it because, it's a huge topic. If you've heard me from a long time now, I've been saying move on from Porzingis.
Yeah. So again, I would encourage you guys to listen to last night's post game because we talked about how it's like there's just a cloud hanging over everything. Yeah. So we can't even talk about the game or this or that. It's always just this cloud of what's going on with that. And just in general, if you want to listen to our post game pods, that's Dallas Hoops Gamecast. It's a separate pod. You can search for it wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe or follow. But that's it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening or for watching if you're on YouTube. And we'll see you guys next Sunday or after the next game if you listen to our post-game pod. We'll see you guys later. Bye. Are you going to say bye?
No, I never do.
Oh, okay.
It's my thing.
Wow.